Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to another episode of Coruscant Radio Underground. And we are back to talk about episode 11 of Andor. This show is, as much as I complained about it for a while there, like I've really gotten into it.
Right.
The last 4 episodes have been really solid. But we're going to talk about it. Spoilers, if you haven't watched it yet, it will be a spoiler discussion. Joining me, as they have every week for Andor discussion, is we've got Lunar Girl and Dragon Buddy. And let's see, in the chat. Yeah, Marisha's here, but I was talking about our guest. You're not a guest. You just belong here.
But I'm also joining you. You know, if I don't get adequate credit, this is the thing about Marisha. If she doesn't feel like she gets her due credit, then she asks for it. Part of our dynamic.
Good for you.
Yeah, all the kids, they know us. Like, and who's the best? You're the best, Mom. My nieces and nephew. Who's the best? You're the best, Aunt Rish. I was like, that's right.
That's right. That's right.
We are glad y'all are here, though.
Thank you.
All right. So in the chat right now, we've got Nicole and looks like Hectorlorian just joined us as well. So got a couple people here in the chat. And when we get done here tonight, we're going to switch over to the science fictionary, and Marisha and I are going to be joined by Nicole. And we're going to talk about Wakanda Forever.
Yes, indeed.
Nice. So that's going to be an interesting.
You did? How'd you like it?
Yeah. We'll be in the chat.
Cool.
We'll get your 2 cents in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right in. Overall thoughts on the episode. Kelly, I'll let you kick us off there.
Sad, heartbreaking, and holy wow, that was so cool.
Right.
It was a week for sad stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we watched Andor. I was like, that was sad. We went and watched Wakanda. That was sad. I was like, geez, all right, I need something happy. Can you please do something happy for me?
Yeah, I really, and we talked about it actually last week. I thought for sure that they would give because Cassian's story, his story is tragic. It's tragic from start to finish. And I honestly thought that they would, that Cassian would at least have the opportunity to tell his mother goodbye.
Yeah, I didn't see that happening. And it's
kind of I knew it was probably a 50-50 shot there, but I didn't expect to just open up this episode with her having passed.
Yeah.
And then the saddest droid in all of Star Wars, right?
That broke my heart. B2 emo. I just want to hug him.
It was really sad.
No, but I mean, that's really great storytelling and really great direction when you can evoke emotion with a droid.
From a droid.
Yes.
And not even like a particularly like, some of our droids are more human shaped. And so it's easier to attach human emotion to something that looks human. That's just the way we're built. And this isn't at all. It's a trash can.
It's a defective trash can.
Right.
Can't hold a charge, stutters all the time. I mean, come on. That's not a very high-tech droid.
Right,
exactly, Gilbert. It didn't cry my tears.
Well, I didn't cry. Let's get that straight. But I did see it at like 5 a.m. So
the way it invoked emotion was great. Just he didn't want to leave. And then it's like, well, I can go with you. And then like he's got to leave the house and come back and let's just stay one more night. He's grasping onto the familiars and stuff.
Right. Well, and he even says like he wants to stay just in case.
Yeah. Like I want Mama Marva.
Right. So, I mean, I thought, I guess Cassian's story is just going to be a great tragedy from start to finish. Like there's not going to be a lot of bright spots in Cassian's story.
So sad.
You know, this is somebody lost his family as a kid, and now he's losing his second family, and yeah, it's
So I didn't realize that he actually had her name. He had that because this is the first time they referred to her as more of an Andor.
No, they did earlier, but it was kind of subtle. And
yeah, okay, well, this is the first time I caught it, at least.
I think it was mentioned as like the Andors.
Okay,
was how they were mentioned earlier.
Because I had kind of assumed that he had just retained his name, but like he actually, you know, he referred to her as his mother and his, you know, his mom and his dad, but you know, I mean, he was a teenager by the time they come along, so there's always that degree of whenever a child old enough to make a decision says no, you know, like takes the name of the adoptive parents. That's always a significant, you know, kind of statement. Because, you know, it's changing your name, you know, there's a certain degree of changing your identity when you change your name. And so I kind of didn't realize that he actually had their name. So that was one of the things I was like, wow, it's kind of poignant.
What about you, DB? Overall thoughts on the episode?
Overall, for an episode that didn't have much action, you know, we had a couple bits. It went by so fast. Like, it just seemed like it ended really quickly, and we're left with one more after it. They are taking some decent direction when it comes to the writing, where you think you're going to have these arcs, and they're pulling them off at kind of odd times. So, you know, you think you're headed into full on action, and you didn't get it, but you're not. I wasn't disappointed by it. There's still some great story there, and a lot of little Easter eggs. So,
there was action. There was action.
No, the portion where with Luthen getting caught in the ship and whatnot, great, but it's only a small portion of that episode.
It was the most traditionally Star Wars action we've had in this show, though.
Right. And then finding out what happens to Marva as the daughter of Ferrix and what that entails for her death was pretty wild. I think we're opening up for something huge.
Yeah. I mean, I predicted last week that all of our moving pieces on the board were all heading to Ferrix. Well, it definitely appears that everybody's heading to Ferrix.
Right.
Everybody's heading.
That's why he just split up with his buddy. He's like, oh, we're going to go our separate ways. All right, I'm going to go. Everything's great. It's like, yeah, you're totally going home. Like that's totally the direction this is getting ready to go. But I think you're right. I think that we're getting ready to all, you know, and it's kind of, in some ways I felt like, you know, when we were watching Rings of Power and 2 episodes from the end, Mount Doom explodes and you're like,
right?
I mean, what do you do from there? And then the next episode is more like, it's like, and then it just kind of, you know, like action wise, just totally the bottom falls out. And it's not that there's not stuff happening, but it's like, this is not how I expected this to go. Like usually it kind of builds and builds in crescendos, and it's like it crescendoed and then just sort of like, all right, and we're gonna kind of, you know, we're gonna and now for something totally different. Which was, but it did work. It worked better than I would have expected, I think. You know, I felt that sort of the same way that I did with I was like, wow, they're gonna have a hard time beating that for the last 2 episodes. But the next episode of both of these shows, I think, you know, the penultimate episode for the season delivered, even though it did not continue the energy, really. It didn't continue the action, but this is an interesting situation where they managed to sort of keep the energy going, the energy that was a little bit hard won. In spite of the action dropping off. And that's really significant, I think. They managed to hold on to the momentum for the story without having to rely on nonstop action, which pretty much the last episode was.
Well, I mean, so how do y'all feel about, so when we go into this finale, I mean, we haven't done there are no other than the prison escape. The prison escape is the most action we have in any episode. And even that episode isn't just all action.
Right.
There's maybe a quarter of the episode is
right.
So we've leaned way more into dramatic elements than what we typically have in Star Wars, where we would expect a big kind of fight at the end here, a lot of action. But I wonder how much action we're actually going to get.
I think we're going to get a lot of action. Like, it's pointing towards.
I think there's going to be. I think we will get a good action sequence, but I just wonder how much of it is really going to stay more in the dramatic realm than just full blown action spectacle.
Well, they've done well in the dramatic role for this show. So, I mean, it holds true to the mystery, the intrigue, the spy, a kind of thriller instead of more action. And the storyline in it. So I don't think, and last week's episode 11, really shows that you don't need a ton of action to be really engaged in everything that's going on and invested in what's going on. So it was definitely, and there was enough Star Wars hints to whether it be expanded universe or little Easter eggs that really kind of brought you in. This is Star Wars. This is still happening. Like right in the beginning where they're trying to escape before they run into the goofy duo there. You have a TIE Reaper flying over, which has been in plenty of Star Wars stories. So it kind of brought you into it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Overall, did you have any other initial thoughts before we?
No, I just it's definitely the show is a little bit took me a minute to like kind of. I honestly, for the first weeks, Andrew would be like, "All right, we're recording an episode on this tomorrow. You got to watch it before we start talking." And I was like, "But I'm bored." But it's fine. It's finally picked up enough that I get up on Wednesday mornings. So I was like, all right, I'm going to watch this before, we get doing too much. And, I kind of wonder if maybe if they're not going to go action heavy, I almost feel like it might be a little bit reactionary to kind of the criticisms that have been leveled against some Marvel shows about the big action sequence in the third act.
Right.
Which has kind of been, it's been a formula that's worked really well for them, but not as it doesn't have quite the same effect in the shows that I think it's had in the movies. And so I think maybe they're trying to not fall into that. And, I mean, we still got one more episode to see how it goes, but so far I think they're doing a good job telling a story. In a way that maybe isn't exactly what we predicted, because I mean, Star Wars has always kind of been a big third act action sequence kind of franchise as well. So I feel like they tried a lot of new things for this show. Some of them hit, some of them didn't. But kudos to them for trying something different and shaking it up a little bit, because we haven't all loved all of the shake up things that Star Wars has tried, but on the whole, I think that they're doing a good job with this one.
Definitely.
Right.
I think we're going to have like half action and half story.
Yeah. See, the typical,
I think that's what they're setting up for.
I do too. I think, and that's kind of what I was getting at. I think that, because your normal action, outline for an action movie or show is your third act is just your action finale. It's all action.
Yeah.
But I think that they're going to try to look for more balance. That because a lot of times, like just take a Marvel movie, for instance, usually by the time you get to the third act, you tell all your story in the first two acts. And by the time you get to your third, you're just interested in the action.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's basically your 80s action movie setup.
Right.
Is you tell your story early, and then by the time you get to the end, it's just the action. You kind of forget about telling story. I don't think Tony Gilroy wants to quit telling story. So I think that the action will be somewhat restrained. I don't think it'll just be an all-out spectacle. But I do think we're going to get good action. But I think we've got a lot of different things. It's not a clear cut who's going to do what when they show up here.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we still have the story of what's going to happen with Lita, which they're probably going to agree to the betrothal. It seems like that's what they're setting it up for.
Yeah. I think
so that's probably going to be the non-action sequence. But then you have like Luthen Saw and the guy that I can't remember his name. Yeah, Grieger. And you have a broken Bix, and you have Dedra saying, "Oh yeah, give them a funeral so we can all pounce on them," Yeah. And then you have Cyril who's running towards the target, and you have probably Cassian coming in. So.
Yeah, I mean Cassian is definitely coming. And the other side of that is everybody that's there waiting on Ferrix. You've got Imperials waiting, you've got Rebels waiting, and you've got Cyril on the way, and they're all there to kill Andor.
Yeah, exactly.
If they just
so you have
Cyril,
like that big thing in Ferrix.
I think Deidre's going to kill Cyril.
I think so. He is legit the worst, though.
Yeah.
He really is.
It started off being, I kind of want to know more about him and where are we going to go, until like, wow, he's nuts.
He's crazy.
He's crazy.
He's like one of those guys that goes shoots up a movie theater waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But he's so beaten down by his own mother. He has no spine.
Yeah.
He has no spine, and he just wants approval.
Yeah. But he has no idea what he's doing.
No.
I mean, he stole mommy's money out of her safe. Like you stole mommy's money. Like, where's your own money? You've been working.
His mother's nuts.
Yeah. Uncle Carlo or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. They're a mob family, it appears.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what to expect from him. They've twisted him around so much where I can almost see him show up and kill Deidre.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's been rejected and rejected and rejected. And I think we're meant to feel, other than the times we've seen, that this is rejection over time. This is an ongoing thing in his life that he's never found his place.
Yeah.
Because every time he tries to find his place, he's turned away.
Yeah, the closest
he's a character that could wind up on the rebel side.
Not for any good reasons, though.
No, not for any good reasons. But But see, I don't see that happening. And that's the thing, though. We've got people that are kind of falling in on the rebel side, but not necessarily for the right reason. That's part of Saw Gerrera's problem.
Yeah.
And you could see him falling in there just by default. If he shows up and loses it and kills Deidre, where else is he going to go?
Like Cyril is such a weenie that I see him like on a grassy knoll or top floor of the library and aiming at Andor, but then like sneezing and maybe like shooting B2 emo so that everybody knows it's him, or accidentally shooting Bix or something like that. And then everybody's like, oh, Cyril's up there, and then he gets taken away in cuffs, like I see him like trying to kill Cassian, but screwing it up.
Well, he's the question mark in all of this, though, because we don't even know entirely what his motives are at this point.
Yeah. Or how he's really truly connected to anything other than just an outside character with a lot of issues.
It's a revenge plot at this point.
Yeah.
But it's not just a revenge plot, though, because now you have to wonder, who all does he want revenge against?
Right?
Yeah. He's an obsessive.
I think part of his character is the fact that the closest he got to being an individual was when he had his job with the Morlana security, and that Cassian is the reason why he doesn't have that anymore. We've learned that when he was working there, he had his own place. didn't open and invite his mother to come. You know, he was his own person. So Cassian is really the person that took it from him. So I don't think for that, I don't think he'll turn rebel. Just
no, I don't
he's gonna,
really think he will.
he's going to go out in a blaze of glory, I think. And
yeah,
I think he wants to go out in a blaze of glory, but I don't think he has the spine to do it. Like we saw him when he shows up there, it's like he does not have the guts to actually go out there and be the kind of person that he sees himself as some sort of heroic figure, but he's not. He's a total coward.
Right.
Yeah. Cowards can be dangerous though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look at
It
Luther.
gives me like
Right.
A self-proclaimed coward. You know, I mean, he's a very dangerous person that knows a lot of stuff.
It gives me vibes like Jodie Foster's stalker who went and shot Ronald Reagan, like which I can't remember his name right now, but that's the kind of guy that Cyril is, you know. So weird.
Yeah,
so
no,
weird.
Cyril's an odd character that he's ended up in a very different place than I thought they were going to end up with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about, I mean, we've got, what do you think about the rebels? I mean, do y'all think that Luthen is going to head to Ferrix?
Yes. I think that's where he's headed to. His mind has been on a couple key things, and one of them was being Andor. He's worried that Andor could bring him down. And I really think the only way for Andor not to run into issues with Vel and Cinta is for Luthen to be involved into it. To you know, for him to let Luthen know, like, I'm all in, I'm rebel, you know, like through and through.
And in order to do that, he'd have to take a vow that everybody else was taking.
So that's where I think we're going with him. You know, that's where he talked about it in the last episode. You know, that was the last item he was trying to procure. So I don't see him taking a backseat to it.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting finale. And like Nicole said, I think that I don't think they're going to tie everything up.
No,
like I think that they're going to leave, you know, like Kenobi, they sort of tied up. It's like, 'cause it was kind of a one-off. This one, I think we get, you know, a big like moment at the end where they're like, and tune in 2 years to see next.
Yeah. They gotta leave you wanting more, or else you're never gonna come back, you know?
Right.
Well, I mean, I think they'll give us something, but knowing what next season is and that we're going to be doing time jumps across the 5-year stretch.
Yeah.
I think we're going to leave off with a firm indication of, you know, Andor, you know, kind of the rebellion becoming more of a established, united
think Ferrix
thing.
is going to be that. That's going to be the start of the rebellion.
I think Ferrix is Lexington, the revolutionary. You know, I think that this is the shot that's going to ignite the powder keg.
Right.
Yeah.
And we also, I mean, we have the possibility here of other groups of rebels actually showing up.
Yeah.
Right.
We could see Krieger's men show up. We could see Saw's men show up. Not to mention, we could just see Ferrix is tired of this.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too. The whole town is ready to rebel, you know.
And I think a big thing that they've said since the beginning, where Andor was saying, you know, like you sneak in, they don't expect you to. And we're gonna see that come out in Ferrix, where you see Deidre like, give them the funeral, give them that. We want to do this. And by opening up that square, she's setting herself up to be, you know, to this is going to blow up in her face completely because she's trying too much to get that one person and that one key, and she's leaving too much open. Especially giving them for the permits. You know,
I think she's lost sight of the forest for the trees.
Yes.
I think she's really zoned in on her tree there, and I think she's losing sight of and the thing is, she was always a good big picture person, but she's kind of become a little obsessed.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's kind of been a recurring theme in this show is that obsession is dangerous.
Yeah.
We're seeing her obsession. We've seen old Mama's Boys obsession, Cyril's obsession. We've seen kind of how that's kind of taken him. We've seen Saul Guerrera. We've seen a lot of people whose obsessions have taken them places that they never had any intentions of going.
Right.
I mean, even Mon Mothma, she's like, I just was so laser focused on this thing. We're seeing lots of people who lost sight of the forest for the trees, and it's getting ready to bite them all in the butt.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, we really start this season off with, the rebellion sort of exists, but it's little cells that don't even know what the other ones are doing or who the other ones even are.
Right.
And I think that ends. I think this next episode is the end of that. This is, I think Mon Mothma is going to have to step out into the light. I think Luthen steps out into the light if he survives. I still am curious to see if Luthen makes it I mean, we could theoretically lose a lot of characters here.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. I don't think Luthen's gonna make it.
He ain't got no plot armor, and also he's expensive.
Right.
And he's tired of hiding. He's tired of the show. He's all about everybody needs to unite, and what better way for everybody to unite than Luthen being gone,
I mean, and that's the thing, like, he knows how these things work, and it is well established that the best way to incite a movement is a martyr.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's been seen over and over and over again, and that's something that people who work in anti-insurgency, really, that's something they have to always balance, is the risk of making martyrs. And there's nothing that galvanizes people quite the same way.
Right.
So I think it's I think it's
plausible.
I think it's and he understands how all this works.
Yeah.
And I think that he is committed enough that he would be willing to put all the pieces. He would be willing for anybody to be the martyr. And if it needs to be him, I think that he's down for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like he's cold enough that if he thought somebody else would make a better figurehead, if he thought Mon Mothma getting taken out would be the catalyst he needed, I think he would 100% do it. But I think that he is also committed enough that if he thinks that he's the best candidate, that he's gonna put all those pieces in place.
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's just go ahead and talk about the action scene here, because that's the one I've really been looking for. So Luthen's ship, I mean, we already talked a little about his ship last week. It is, if James Bond had a car in space, it's Luthen's ship.
Oh yeah,
100%.
It is.
Did say that, and wow.
It takes the Millennium Falcon and kind of drops it down a little lower on the scale of being able to take on the Empire.
Right.
Especially with its one countermeasures just for a tractor beam that alone, that was pretty wild.
That's not what got me. I mean, that kind of got me. Like, it was like, oh, would you look at that? But when the TIE fighters and the lightsabers, like, whoa,
lightsabers, plasma waves.
Yeah, like, wow.
It's the very Star Warsy thing, one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's the most Star Wars thing in this show yet.
Yeah. And it's great seeing the people on the cruiser just completely flabbergasted.
Yeah, I mean, nobody even knows what to say. Like, once he starts attacking,
what just happened?
Right.
A TIE fighter flew through a ship-sized lightsaber and turned into two, and I'm like,
oh. So what do y'all think on that? Is it a lightsaber type beam, or is it something else?
I've read a couple different spots where that they had said that this ship was Kyber powered, and that it had Kyber tech on it. I think I've always kind of felt that Luthen is connected to the Force in some way.
Yeah.
How that is, I mean, I've read crazy theories where he's, he was Plagueis's other apprentice and turned to where he looked at the Empire and saw what Palpatine was doing and didn't want to do it. And what better way to turn it than, have an inside Sith person destroy the Empire? Pretty wild, outlandish, but at the same time, it's definitely Kyber tech. That right. And whether you want to call it a lightsaber or not, it's a Kyber crystal, and these maul blades came out the side of the Fondor.
Right.
So,
dude, it is a ship-sized lightsaber.
Yeah, I think it's a solid beam, plasma beam esque. I don't think it's a laser blast, because we've seen Kyber do both. We've seen Kyber, used for a blast or for a plasma blade. I think it's more of a blade than a blast, but I guess we'll see. And they probably won't tell us here. There's a few things we're probably going to be waiting for the visual dictionary. So hopefully Pablo Hidalgo will get that. That right real quick. I guess is Pablo still writing the visual dictionaries?
I want to say yes. I don't.
I'm
sure positive.
I haven't heard that they've changed it, so I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
So I'll be really curious, because I really want to know what it was, but there's a lot of disagreement. The first thing I thought, we've already seen, we see him carrying what is, I think, his cane, but it looks an awful lot like a lightsaber.
Cane, a telescope, maybe, because it had the rings and it looked like it got
the way it looked, and that it extends and all this other stuff. It's definitely a nod to it. There's a lot of places confirming that it's I don't think it's a lightsaber.
Oh, I'm with Andrew though. I do think it's a lightsaber.
Yeah, I'm really curious what it is, but the thing is whatever it is, we're definitely like making subtle indications that there's something more to Luthen that we don't know yet. That we've seen him in possession. We know his ship is Kyber powered. He had a big chunk of Kyber that he sends with Cassie and Andor at the beginning. Like,
he's got the Sith Stalker armor in his shop. He's got the Jedi Temple Guard helmet in his shop. He and holocrons and wayfinders, possibly.
So it's curious to see, but what it is he somehow connected to a Jedi? I don't think he's a Jedi. I think that I think having him be a Force user hiding out on Coruscant just doesn't work.
It doesn't make
But I think he's friends of the Jedis.
I think
I don't know how.
Well, I think that's very possible, or he could have been more attached to one than that. Like, Jedi aren't supposed to have attachments, but we've seen that quite a few times. Like, maybe Luthen had a wife that was a Jedi.
Maybe.
We could have had, it could be, I'm just throwing that out there as an example, not as a prediction, but like, he's got some kind of connection. It might be to the Church of the Force or to the Guardians of the Wills, but he has some sort of connection beyond just being a collector.
He can't be, and the decisions that he's made and how he views the pieces of this game that he's in charge of moving around, there's no way he's Jedi. A little too cold, a little too quick to see, well, I can let 31 people die because it's for the greater good of these numbers. So I can't see him being a Jedi in any way, being okay doing that.
Maybe he was a Jedi who left the Order.
Oh, I get that idea, but I think that cold calculatedness that he has kind of that'd be one stretch for a Jedi to lay down their swords and turn into a
you want him to be a Sith. That's the thing. You're not going to say, "Oh, he's probably a Jedi who."
Well, let's keep playing with theories here, though. If he's more than just a collector, if he has all of this this Kyber for some other reason, and if we're going to assume those are blades on his ship and not some sort of blast, Why are they red?
Right.
Who are you snapping?
Them being red is it's huge.
It is.
Well.
It might not mean anything at all. It might just be like, I mean, just they might have played with that color because the laser blast from rebel ships have always been red. They might have just done that.
And
it kind of depends on what the tech is, but it's the first thing I thought when I saw that was, and I posted it in the chat, was it's the gift from Friends, and it's Chandler, and it's like, can open, worms everywhere. And so, I mean, but that's, because within minutes there were the wildest, craziest Sith and Jedi theories that you could possibly imagine.
Some of them are really wild to think about, but there's no way this is happening, but very cool to read about.
Yeah. So
I think that's a pretty likely scenario. I think, if he's not, I don't think he is actually a Force. If he is a Force user, then he's cut himself off from the Force. Otherwise, there's no way that Palpatine doesn't sense him hiding out on Coruscant.
Well, Ahsoka cut herself off from the Force right about the same time.
Right. And so, I mean, we see people doing that. So it's a possibility, but if he is, he's definitely abandoned more than he's abandoned all the ideals. And not just but the thing is though, so I kind of feel like he might sort of be like, so we've been watching Stargate. I think he might kind of be the Daniel Jackson of Star Wars. Like, he knows a whole bunch of stuff, and he's meddling with a whole bunch of really old things that most people aren't aware of. And he's like the crazy old man who's, tinkering with things that people have forgotten about. And I really kind of wonder if he hasn't got some kind of like Old Republic, High Republic stuff that he's modding out. And if he might not be working, and that might be the reason we haven't seen some of it, because it's like, well, why didn't we see light shape? Because it always, the in-universe question, why didn't we see these things in use during the prequel era? And I think that's why. I think that's because he's got really old stuff. And I think that he just knows a lot of things about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'm sure because he knows about Palpatine as well. I'm sure the reason why he's so gung-ho on this is that he knows that there is a Sith present. I really think he believes that, and that he's aware of that, which not many people are right now. The whole Sidious/Vader equation.
But I really think that, like, Luthen is far and away the most interesting new thing about this series.
Yes.
And, like, I want to know more. Like, they haven't done just a whole lot of characters in movies or shows lately that I'm like, I need a book, or I need a new series, I need a spinoff, or I need something.
Yeah.
So far, Luthen's backstory appears to be interesting enough that I really want those things. Now, who they bring in to write that, I don't, if they were to do a book, I don't know. There's not really anybody outside of Timothy Zahn in the current writing pool for Lucasfilm that I would want to see do it. Maybe the guy that did the Force Collector book, which is a incredibly underrated book. But there's most of the writers wouldn't be suited to continue that story. And I really don't want to see a comic, not because I, have anything against comics other than the fact that I really don't like to read comics.
Too serious a story for a comic. You want to,
well, you just don't get enough. Like, I'm a novel reader. I've never really been into comics. There's just so much more meat, comics are fun, but you don't get a lot of meat on the bone in those stories.
Oh yeah, The Walking Dead. I have the 3 compendiums and a couple of volumes. Love them, but you could burn through them so quick to where. But I collect the Game of Thrones, the Tolkien. I like sitting down and being able to just put several hours into a book and absorb a lot of information. I don't think that a comic would really do his character well either.
I'm just so afraid though. Like, I really think he's going to die next episode, and then we'll never know. Like, unless Clea decides in season 2, episode 1, to tell us about him.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's let let's let Tony Gilroy, when he finishes season 2 of this, go back and do an Andor origin story.
Yeah, right.
I'd be all kinds of down for that.
Mm-hmm.
And Ro is, as far as people actually using a lightsaber that aren't Jedi or Sith. I guess the biggest example we have of that would be Sabine Wren.
Dark saber.
The dark saber is a lightsaber, and we've seen quite a few non-Force users wield that blade. So that would be the main example I would go to on that.
And let's see, Fulcrum Entertainment pulled out a couple of other examples. Sergeant Krill, the Stormtrooper, and Jaden from Jedi Knight Academy.
Yeah, but that's
old.
That's old. Right. Not in non-canon stuff. We have quite a few, like legend stuff. There are quite a few. But as far as current canon, I'm sure there are. I would bet that there's another example in there. Well, I mean, I guess like we don't really like. General Grievous
Luke
is not a Jedi, or is not a Force user. So
I mean, Luke was playing with a lightsaber before he was ever in tune with the Force. In the original trilogy, if you really look at it, he had a connection to it, but only a subconscious connection to it.
Yeah. But as far as that question, Ro, I think that Darksaber would be my primary answer because we've seen multiple people wield that blade.
Yeah. Multiple non-Jedi.
Right. So, but yeah, I need more on Luthen for sure.
Yeah.
And the ship, and I might end up owing Ro a drink, but I have a feeling that Ro is going to wind up owing me and Brad both drinks. So,
what is the bet on? Like, I'm curious.
What kind of, whether that's some sort of laser blast or if it's a blade.
I think it's a blade.
I don't think it's a blast. I think, okay, so here's my argument of why that would be a really, really terrible design if it's a laser blast, using it the way that Luthen used it. If you used that either close to a planet or in amongst a bunch of your own ships, and it's just a continuous blast and you're spinning while you're using it, you're taking out everybody.
Yeah.
You're definitely
So for that reason alone, I think that it's a blade with a limited length. Like, I don't think it's I don't think it's a blast going out into infinity somewhere, or even if it's just going out, a few miles. That's an awfully hazardous sort of weapon.
Right. That was my initial assumption, that it was just a laser. Laser beam that sort of like he put out and then retracted.
Now, for all the people saying that Tony Gilroy doesn't like Star Wars, doesn't do Star Wars references, he definitely had that ship spinning. Spinning is definitely a Star Wars thing.
It's a Star Wars thing.
Yup. Oh, that was so beautiful. I've
said it from the beginning. The first time we laid eyes on the Fondor, I fell in love with that ship. And every next time we've gotten to see him fly it anywhere, it's become sexier and sexier. It's just a great Star Wars Star Cruiser.
I mean, the way they ended this episode was exactly what I needed, because sad, Marva's gone, and then B2 emo, like, and then like Bix is broken, she can't even walk, and like, okay, you're gonna cheer me up with TIE fighters and oh, thank God.
So the one scene we really haven't actually talked about was the continuation of the prison break. We've got Cassian and Melshi have escaped, and we start off with them just hanging on the side of a cliff, and Melshi is done. Like,
it's been a bad few days.
Yeah.
So what did y'all think about that? I love the aliens. We haven't done a lot of aliens in this. I was so happy to see completely practical aliens.
I liked them.
I want to know, like, if the creature shop, they look like creature shop stuff, like Jim Henson's creature shop stuff.
Right.
So I really, really want to know if the creature shop had a hand in those.
Yeah. Yeah. They looked Star Warsy. They talked Star Warsy. I really enjoyed them.
The one of them, doesn't he show up in Rogue One? Or at least something of his kind. I don't know if it's the same one, the Sai Yak.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think he shows up in Rogue One at some point.
I love their cool little like vernacular there, because like we've only seen a couple of, like Yoda has his little weird way of talking, but it was really I really enjoyed seeing some other aliens with their really weird take on basic. I thought that was fun.
Dialect.
You broke, Ro.
Dialect.
I mean, it's true.
Okay, so Force Awakens. Okay. I kind of felt like we had seen them before, but I couldn't really place them. But I really liked.
I remember hearing them talk though.
No, I don't either. But no, I thought they were great. But what did y'all just the scene in general like?
Fantastic. I liked it. Like, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was a really excellent. Like, the rebels aren't the only ones who have kind of had it. They're like, you know what? Screw the Empire. Like, we'll take. Not only are we not going to turn you in for whatever it is that they're paying, where you want to go. Like,
where you want to go.
And I think that's very telling for where society is right now. They're just all kind of ready to just.
They're done.
Give the Empire a big middle finger because screw you. You ruined our planet.
Yeah.
You ruined our fishing with your hydroelectric prison. So you know what? You don't care about us. We don't care about you neither.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really telling for where the universe is or the galaxy is at this point.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed the banter back and forth. It's just really funny.
Gilbert getting spicy in
the chat. Gilbert is trying to take Ro's Star Wars card over here.
No, it was nice. It's been one of those complaints that it was a legitimate complaint when it came to Andor's. There's not many aliens. We've gotten a couple that you kind of see, off in the distance or in the background here or there, but for the most part, they're all humanoid, and
or humans. Not even just humanoid. They also can be straight up humans.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, like the Empire was known to be racialist when it came to aliens. So I think we're getting some of that feel into it. So that to finally get, some actual aliens that are, outside of the norm and how their feelings of the Empire, it was good to add in there. It was a refreshing spot to see something like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of actually does beg the question that I hadn't really considered before. Why are all of the prisoners in this prison human?
Yeah, that part didn't make sense, did it?
So the one thing I would say to that kind of covers it as well as anything is that when they are loading them on the prison transports to be sent to the different prisons, they're asked as they're loaded up, where are you from? And then wherever they're from is where they're sent to different prisons. So I think that
makes sense.
I think they're dividing them up,
and I think
by species.
I think part of that is maybe certain species have certain physical attributes that make, like, having opposable thumbs makes you good for putting this kind of machinery together.
Yeah.
Maybe Wookiees are stronger, and so they're going to be utilized more other places.
They're in the mines.
But it is really interesting that they are actually not just they're not just sending people to just rent, like they're literally dividing their prisons up.
Right.
By species.
Now it's also, I don't know how much they've delved into it in the new canon, because honestly, I'm way behind on the new canon in as far as books. But it was always kind of indicated, yes, there's all these alien species in the galaxy, but like this species is from this planet and this species is, but humans are everywhere. And that humans are, have always kind of far and away been the predominant species in the galaxy. Now, whether that was because it was easier to put humans in clothes, in costumes, than to create that many aliens, maybe, but that's always been, and that's why in Star Wars, I mean, even with the exceptions of things like the Ewoks, largely we only see even in the original movies, we mostly see aliens in the shady areas,
in the background.
In the background, they're hidden places like the cantina where they can come out of the shadows a little bit.
On the party beach, they were all over the place on the party beach.
Right.
This little Ferrex just doesn't have any species like that,
And a lot of the aliens stuck to themselves too, where you had the banking clans and you had the techno clans and you had these aliens that worked on the outside that profited from all of the war, that profited from all of this. So the Empire taking over, I think that might have something to do with the lack of these aliens. Is the Republic going into the Empire was, all the trade federations and all of these clans were making money off of war, and the Empire is starting to snuff that all out. Where, so I think that's a big portion of that.
Yeah, it was exciting to get to see some aliens, and they were cool.
They were cool.
Yeah, and the quad jumper was cool. The last time we saw a quad jumper, we didn't get to see it fly; it blew up.
Right. We saw it blow up or rapidly disassemble.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just like the directing and writing have just remained top notch. As much as I complained about the pacing early on, I now can't wait to see what comes next.
Right.
And that's good storytelling. That kind of
they took their time building the foundation.
And it's a little more traditional storytelling. Like
you
forget that used to, they had to get your attention with that pilot, right? They had to really sell, but after the pilot episode, then they kind of would start to build. And that hasn't really been the way that TV shows have been going here lately, but it's not a bad thing to have a little bit of a slow burn in a story.
And we heard
as
a lot
long
going,
as it actually goes somewhere.
And we heard a lot going into this. A lot of the complaints were, we know what happens to everybody. Everybody we know the ones with plot armor. There's no way you can build. We care about a droid. We care about Luthen. We care about all of these characters that don't have a place outside of Andor.
I mean, we don't know if Mon Mothma's husband and child even make it through. Like, there are 2 whole characters with plot armor in this show. We know 3. We know that Cassian makes it out. We know Mon Mothma makes it out, and we know that Melshi makes it out.
Right.
Everybody else is fair game.
I think that Perrin and Lita, they don't die, but I think Perrin and Mon go through with the betrothal, especially since Lita is looking towards the old ways, and Perrin and Lita go back to
Chandrila.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
And Mon has to stay in Coruscant. She's a senator,
Well, and see, that's another one of the things, all the things that Mon Mothma is having to consider. Marrying her daughter off to this guy, if nothing else, gets her off of Coruscant.
Gets her away. And as we know, we're only a couple years away from the Senate being dissolved.
Right.
So where she's going to have to become full-on rebel leader. So, it makes sense to this happening can actually save her family in the end.
And honestly, like as distasteful as it is, mobsters do have a certain amount of muscle, and they have a certain amount of immunity to the crazy that goes on. And so she may wind up deciding this is the safest thing for her only child. Is like, I may not like it, but
it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Like it wouldn't be the first time someone took someone that was sort of on the wrong side of the law and gave them an opportunity to be a hero.
The mob during World War II. The FBI went to the mafia, and they were working with them to help protect the homeland.
Well, it's like you look
pirates
right, as they say, Jean Lafitte,
right?
Straight up, like pirate. Okay, it's a privateer, right? He was a legal pirate,
right?
Right. American war hero. So it's I don't know. I mean, I can see that guy, I cannot think of his name. The Davos, could be used for more than just, he's just a mobster. He's also got money and power.
Right.
So, he might end up being, play an important role in protecting Chandrilla, which we know doesn't fall to I don't think Chandrilla ever fell to the Empire. So,
no.
It'll be interesting to see what they do there. But I do think they're going through with the wedding, the betrothal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think Lita is going to actually thank her mother and love her mother for the suggestion.
I think Perrin already arranged it.
Oh, that's slimy.
I think so too. When he came in and said his bit, and as soon as we saw the daughter laid out there practicing the old ways and stuff, it clicked in my head as Perrin already knew what was going on, knew who was coming into his house, and has probably already started working on that whole thing. It might have.
Well, I brought up last week about how in last episode he, I can't remember his name, but the slime ball said that, I talked to Perrin a lot. He did say that, so it's very possible.
Yeah. I think if Perrin has already made this arrangement, I think he just wants to, as a power move, he wants her to agree.
Oh.
I think because like he could, if that's the case, he could be like, your husband already got this thing figured out. But I think he wants to exert enough power over her that she has to agree to it independent of anything else.
Right.
He want, like, basically, I want to hear you say it, I think is kind of what, one way or the other. I think that's where he's coming from.
Right.
He wants the esteemed, respected senator to
spill it,
to admit that she needs him.
What have you been doing? I know it's not an affair. I keep telling everybody it's an affair, so that way they leave me alone. But it's, say it. I know what's going on. Just say it.
Right. So as we kind of wrap up for the night, I did want to ask, it came out, there was an announcement earlier this week that the first 2 episodes of Andor are going to be released over the holiday weekend coming up on ABC, FX, Freeform, and Hulu.
Right.
All of the other things Disney owns.
Right.
Yes.
So what do y'all think about that? Like, what do you think's going on? What do you think the reasoning
subscribers
is? Yeah. You think it's just about I mean, but the thing is this show has now the numbers are picking up.
Right.
As people are watching it. I think some people were too quick to forget that this released against Rings of Power. And She-Hulk.
And House of the Dragon.
And House of Dragons,
So, I mean, it wasn't like it was, it wasn't like She-Hulk was Marvel's greatest foray into television, but it was still Marvel.
Right. I mean, and it makes total sense, like, especially around holidays, like HBO always does it. Showtime, they all have their holiday free weekends where they show the best of the best, and then people want to subscribe to it,
But I get it, and I get wanting to put this show in front of more people. I'm also curious if I'm not sure how the award ceremonies are currently working, like the different award shows, but I'm also curious if running it on a network opens it up to more award possibilities.
I mean, when it comes to viewership, the numbers are lower than where they want them to be. Comparing it to, say, Tales of the Jedi, it's apples and oranges. You're talking a show that you could show your kid, your 10-year-old kid to. Yes. I would not recommend showing a 10-year-old Andor, at least the very first scene anyway. So, you have a different demographic when it comes to that. And you know what? Putting it out there on a network and stuff, it also kind of combats the people that have hated this show before it ever came out. The same people that have been complaining about this show right now and all the things that are wrong with it have been saying the same thing since before it even aired.
100%. So, we've dealt with that on all three things we've been covering.
Absolutely. Which is weird because the only one that was doing all of the things that they were complaining about, House of the Dragon, everybody loves. So I don't get it. But, I think putting it out there on a network shows, you're going to have the regular cable people, the people that don't stream, which there's a lot of them still out there, be exposed to this. And, maybe, I'm sure in the end game is all about bringing subscribers in and bringing more people.
Yeah. And a lot of people watch TV over the holidays. Especially people who don't watch football. Like I remember, as a kid, like Star Wars being on during Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Just because it was on and it was something they could just kind of turn on that people would sit and watch or not.
Yeah.
And I don't come from a big TV family. Like, my dad says whenever he and my mom first got married, it was suggested that they turn on the ball game during Thanksgiving and they looked at him like he had two heads. So it's not, but it's something, especially Star Wars being on during the holidays has kind of just always been a thing. So I think they're trying to kind of tap into that.
Yeah. Well, I think if they can put it in front of more people, that's great. I guess my only thing is this show, I was not hooked after 2 episodes.
No.
And so
you needed that third one to really solidify a lot of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have watched it regardless. Because I was interested in the stuff that they were talking about, but that third episode was really the stamp to be like, okay, I'm definitely sticking around for the rest of this.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was enough. It's Star Wars. It's I'm gonna watch it, but I didn't really get hooked into this show until the third episode is good. I see. Let's see. Rose says it was smart to include the third episode, but the article I'm looking at only shows that they're releasing the first 2.
Yeah, I'm hearing that's only the first 2.
I heard the first 2 as well.
The first 3 would be a better call.
First 3 would definitely be a better call.
We got 3.
But the best arc is the prison arc. And of course, you don't want to just jump in and show people episodes 8, 9, and 10. But I said last week, you could take episodes 8, 9, and 10, and it's a really nice, clean movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You could take 8, 9, and 10. It'd be one of the best sci-fi movies released this year.
There was something that I wanted to bring up that I noticed.
I got it.
And it doesn't have to do with Disney Plus, unfortunately. Every time Cassian is about to go through a major change in his life, he gets a sunset. And we got a sunset again. So I just wanted to point that out, but I forgot about it.
We've seen that several times throughout this. Him him looking at a sunset where he finally looks at a sunset.
When he was a child and he left Uzi what's it when he left with Luthen, we got a sunset. We got another sunset just in this episode when Marva's dead. He's not going back to Marva now.
I think it's all culminating in the fact that we know what happens to him in Rogue One and what he's doing as Scarif is being destroyed. It's a callback to when this is going on in Rogue One. These are probably all the things that he was thinking during Rogue One: the loss of his mother, the loss of the planet and his sister. All of these things were probably going through his mind when he comes to an end in Rogue One. So
on a beach,
making sure to stamp that through this series, very, very good.
I think that is a really big one, and the call to climb that we hear over and over and over throughout Cassian's story, which we heard in Rogue One, but now it's become. Tony Gilroy did a really, really smart thing, and he took that call to climb and made it more of a, that the Empire is trying to push everyone down.
Right.
Climb. It's to climb out of this hole that you're being shoved into by the Empire. And I think by the end of this, we see that as sort of the call of, for the rebels in general is this climb.
And what good prequels aren't always an easy story to tell, especially whenever it's not necessarily a huge dramatic, rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker kind of story.
Right.
But they have done a really nice job of creating significance for things that we already felt an emotional connection to in Rogue One, but giving them a longer backstory.
Right.
And that's what good prequels do. That's what I felt like Rings of Power did a lot of good. Like, that's some good sort of like emotional ties to things that we already knew. So hats off to the writers, because they've done a good job, like you said, creating kind of motifs like the sunsets. And also the sunset is such a classic Star Wars moment, that binary sunset is one of the most iconic things in all of Star Wars.
All of cinema.
All of cinema, absolutely.
We can all hear the song in the back of our mind right now.
Absolutely. Which is why that's how they chose to end Rise of Skywalker, was with a sunset on Tatooine. And so to not just frame it as this is a Star Wars moment, but this is a personal thing for him.
Yeah. I really think it is. I really think it is.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent kind of I think it's a catch, and I think that's definitely something that the storytellers are using. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Sorry to take away.
We're getting 54 minutes.
No.
12, I think.
54 and a little bit of change. So
if it goes by even half as quick as this last one did, it's going to end too quick.
Right.
It's gonna go by quick. I think I would have almost preferred to have been an episode shorter and just give us the last two as a one part, but because it's picked up to the point where and it's just so well written that it just goes by so quick. And at this point, other than the slow start, my only gripe about this show at this point, other than the potential can of worms that it opened, depending on where that goes, I could get real bent out of shape about a couple of possible directions for that.
Right.
But it's just the music. I wish the music was better. And we talked
That's
about
my
that
only
at
gripe
length
as well.
Week, but there are places where the music works and places where it's just non-existent.
The places where
and a few places where it's obnoxious.
The places where the music almost part of the sound design, is kind of part of the background. Those places, like with the boom boom, right? Those places have been really great. but the places where it's just the music has been a little lackluster. I
agree. I still think it's unremarkable.
But the sound design is great. And like I said, the places where the one thing that I feel like they've done a really nice job is the places where the music and the sound design kind of mesh. They've done that a lot better than sometimes TV shows or movies do.
Yeah.
That's been cool.
Right.
And this show makes you feel like it's part of a galaxy and not part of a one little corner spot. Boba Fett did it. Even Kenobi did it, where it feels as big as Star Wars is.
It feels bigger. It feels bigger than what we've gotten on TV so far, largely. I think Mando does a pretty good job with that.
Yeah,
but
Mando's been doing pretty good job with that. So, but this is definitely I don't know if it's the production, however they're doing it makes it feel like it's part of a galaxy and not just one little planet.
Right.
Yeah, no, this is definitely as far as a lot of the stuff goes. I mean, I'll say it. I still like Mandalorian better. It's just it's more what I want when I go to watch a Star Wars. But I'm really loving this show now.
Right.
And I think there's place for both of those things in the Star Wars galaxy. And
Definitely.
I'm really curious to see where they go next. But anybody have anything to say before we wrap up for the night?
Not me.
No, that's a great episode, and a couple more sleeps and we'll get the end.
Oh, shoot.
I agree, Ro. Like I'm fine with Favreau. Favreau has created some amazing things, and he's doing a lot of what George Lucas would be doing if he were making movies today, and he's pushing certain elements of the craft forward, and you see little bits of that in this show. They're not using it, they're doing more set pieces, but like the reason the windows look so amazing on all the Coruscant sets is because they're all LED screens,
right?
And the actors are looking out at Coruscant.
Yeah,
like that's cool. That's what Jon Favreau has done, is helped push forward, and I think both are really important. I think with what Favreau and Filoni and now Tony Gilroy are doing, that mesh of those things it really goes a long ways towards recreating what George Lucas was all about.
Well, that's the interesting thing about Star Wars, because it was made in the 70s. It was very innovative for its time, but now all of those things are seen as very traditional. So to find that line where it's like, it still feels like Star Wars and uses a lot of the traditional techniques, but like the prequels don't feel anything like that, because he was pushing the envelope. So I feel like, what makes Star Wars, it's almost a dichotomy.
Yeah.
It's like the traditional and the innovative.
It's finding the balance between them, and is what made the original trilogy magical.
Right.
And I think that I think that Kenobi was a miss a little bit in that aspect. Boba Fett was a little bit of a miss in that aspect. I still like things about both of those shows. I still think they do things to push both of those stories forward, which I'm always, and this is the thing, this is where me and Ro go back and forth a lot. Ro loves visuals. I love visuals too. I mean, I have an art degree. I clearly love visuals, but I'm always going to be a story first person. I will forgive a lot of crap on the visual side if you tell me a really good story.
Right.
But I don't work in that industry. And so I understand why someone who works more on that side of things on a daily basis is going to look at it that way. But I think that Tony Gilroy has found a really, really great balance between all of those things. And of course, I'm always for practical sets. That Rings of Power did the same thing. Lots of practical sets. And it helps so much.
It does. Because I think it'll always help.
Right. I don't think that's ever going to change. Lord of the Rings trilogy, we did practical sets. And then we did The Hobbit, and everything went CGI, and that was the biggest problem with
pulled you right out of it.
It's kind of like the prequels. It's like
prequels had the same problem, and George Lucas pushed forward with the technology before it was ready to do it. He pushed too far.
Pushed too hard. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess we've got to wrap up because we got to go talk some Wakanda forever.
Thank you.
But let's see. Before we wrap up, Lunar Girl, could you tell everybody where they can find you online and what you got going on?
You can find me on all of the Sidebar Cantina socials on Twitter, Instagram. I hang out in the Facebook, the Discord, wherever you want to find me, I will be there. The Jason and Dave tomorrow are going to be talking about G.I. Joe. So they're taking us back to the 80s. And Jason has a little something up his sleeve with that. Also, you can find me at Stranger Things Has Happened with co-host Don Dellis Nooch. This coming Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, we will be talking about season 2, chapter 6 already. So come join us for that.
Awesome.
Nice. All right. What about you, DB?
You can catch me Twitter, Dragon_Bud with 2 Ds or Dragon_Buddy on Instagram. We're taking a break this week on the Escape Pod, so that way we can pregame our turkey and alcohol on Wednesday. Head into Thursday, be ready. Stretchy pants at the ready. We're taking a break from the Red 5 Tavern this week as well for the holiday. Yes. So I'll see you on Sunday next week when we talk about
Saturday, we both will be on Fulcrum Entertainment.
Fulcrum. And Rogue One Radio on Tuesday. Oh boy, I forgot all about Tuesday.
Oh, you got a busy week after.
Oh, you're going to be on Rogue One Radio this week?
I'm joining Rogue One Radio on Tuesday. See?
Good to know.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad your husband?
I'm looking at my calendar going, oh yeah.
Oh, y'all were killing
the next 2 days, so everything's just all kind of weird for me.
Y'all were killing me in the tavern Friday night.
Oh my gosh, that was so fun. Yeah. Strawberries.
It's a little unpredictable over there.
Yeah,
and what was Charles drinking when it came out his nose?
Nobody for sure, but if I had to guess, it was probably a really nice bourbon.
Okay. That's not good to come out your nose.
No, I've done that. I was somebody talked me into doing. I had a sore throat. It was bourbon, lemon juice, and honey.
Oh, hot toddy.
Gargle with it, right? Yeah, straight up into my sinuses, all up my nose. I was on fire.
No,
this is a terrible decision.
At that point, he questioned all of his life decisions.
Hey, it cleared it all out.
Oh yeah,
sanitized everything.
Oh, I bet.
Oh man.
All right, Marisha, where can people find you online?
You can find me occasionally on Instagram at princesses_and_Padawans, and I'm Pete Padawans on Twitter.
She says occasionally, but the truth is we're about to start on several cosplay projects. Specifically with some armor. They'll probably all be posted over there on her stuff.
Yeah, so. The kids have already been sitting down with their cousins planning out all of their costumes for next Dragon Con. They're like, all right, well, we got 5 days. So one day we're going to do this and one day we're going to do this. And my niece is the little dictator when it comes to those things. So I expect to be getting an extensive list. Although I did tell them they have to make their own costumes for the competition this year. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, and we just found out that Sam Raimi is going to be in New Orleans for the Comic-Con down there in January. So hope we're doing that. And Ro, you need to I'll buy you a drink whether you win the bet or not if you come join us at Dragon Con next year.
And Joker Voice, he just hopped in. He brought up a very good point. Almost forgot. I will also be on Dork Wars next Saturday night, talking about Harry Potter. We've been doing the journey to Hogwarts in September, and we'll be wrapping up with year 7. So
wow, that'll be fun. Nice. I have to let Iana Is that one Yana can tune into?
For the most part, but sometimes things slip. I would say it's PG-13.
Oh, yeah, she's 13. She can probably.
Okay, yeah, PG-13.
Okay, that's fair. House Slytherin. That tracks.
Joker will be with me too.
Awesome.
He was with me for we did year 6 together a couple weeks ago, and it was fantastic.
So, just out of curiosity, what's everybody? So, Hufflepuff here. How about the rest of you guys?
Gryffindor.
Ravenclaw.
Okay, so we're well represented then.
There we go.
All right, guys. Nicole, we're coming. I promise.
Yeah, we're leaving right now.
And Sunray is going to be there too. Nicole is also going to be on with us.
Fun.
Yeah.
Then the Hufflepuffs will be well represented.
Yes. Nicole is a very, true puff right there.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
I fit all of the things, including the unexceptional and overly nice stereotypes. Yeah. All right. Well, it's been really fun. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
As always, you can find me running the Twitter account for the show at crew_podcast. You can find our other show, the Science Fictionary Podcast, both here on the YouTube channel and the audio podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find our podcast as well as all of the rest of the Red 5 Podcast Network at Red 5 Network on Twitter or at bio.link/Red5. And until next time, guys, may the force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.